Okay, hello. Hi, guys. I know some of you met me last week, and my name, once again, is Caroline McKinley. I was the Research Services Librarian. I am now the Education and Outreach Librarian. And this is the second class of a 4-part series class on how to conduct a literature review, from Dr. Thompson's plan of attack to meet deadlines. This class that I'm doing now, which is on how to conduct an effective literature search. We're going to talk about what is a literature review and what it's not, okay? What types of sources, primary sources, are searched, collected, and examined, and how do we search? How do we create an effective search string? As I mentioned, this is the second of a 4-part series. So the next one, the third one, we'll talk about at the end. That is on how to write an effective literature review. But for now, let's talk about what it is. Okay. In the world, a literature review, it provides the research landscape, the lay of the land, how far research goes on a particular topic. Okay. It gives you the current state of research on a specific topic. And it's a review, it's an evaluation, it's a critical summary of the collection of relevant research and scientific literature that pertains to that topic. And it's written by accredited scholars and researchers, okay? The purpose for you as authors of your lit review for your master's thesis is to prove and demonstrate that you have gained a thorough knowledge of your subject, of your topic. You've proved that you were able to connect the different takes, the different studies, primary studies on a topic. That being said, a literature review is not just author A said this, author B said this, author C said this. It's not just a descriptive list of what other researchers have said about a particular study. It's not just, a summary of what someone said. Think of your literature review as a conversational debate. It's a scientific discourse. And hi, honey, come on in. I'm gonna wait until because we're getting to the nitty gritty. Think of your literature review. You are the moderator of the debate. It's a scientific debate. And these people up on the stage, they are the authors of these studies, the primary studies. And you're connecting their answers together, all right? So you're not just summarizing, you're showing the relationship between the different original works. And as a moderator, you are organizing these ideas into a scientific debate that supports and is relevant and related to your hypothesis. So you're connecting them. You're pointing out the conflicts, the differences. Author of study A and author of study B agree on this particular topic. However, author of study C noticed that there was a gap in their research. All right, so author C is connected to author A and B because he's filling in that gap. Author D refutes author C. Okay. Author E might detract from author A, or add to author A, or refute author A, or modify, or support, or endorse. So again, you're getting it. You're connecting the different arguments as they relate to a specific topic. So the scholarly literature component of a literature review is that collection of journal articles. You're mostly going to be looking at published journal articles. That being said, we're going to get into the primary source concept of that. There are other examples of primary sources. Preprints. You've seen the explosion of preprints due to COVID, right? So preprints is a written paper that hasn't gone through that published peer review process. It hasn't been vetted yet. And the explosion actually was a result of the need for information. Conference papers, people who want to show off their studies at a conference, government documents, and other scholarly works you found to be relevant and related and that supports your research topic. Primary sources should encompass most of your references. Why is that? Because that's the point of a lit review. You are reviewing the scholarly primary sources that are out there. So what you're going to be using mostly are our research databases, such as PubMed, Embase, and Web of Science. We're going to focus mostly today on PubMed. It is just huge. All three of these are fantastic, but PubMed is going to be, I want to focus mostly on PubMed because you can use the same strategy for building your search string in PubMed, and you would apply that to Embase and Web of Science. I still am going to show you an overview of Embase and Web of Science, but just in the interest of time, and if we have time, I can even go more in depth into it. But if you want to meet separately outside of this, you can book a consult and we can go over Embase and Web of Science more thoroughly. All of these are great biomedical databases. Slight difference in Embase in terms of the searching. I will show you the slight difference. Web of Science is essentially straight keyword searching, and I'll show you how to do that. The slight difference between PubMed and Embase, if your topic has to do with the relationship between pharmacological treatments and disease relationships, the relationships between the two, you do want to add Embase to your search strategy. Okay. So more specifically, primary sources. So when you see a paper that represents a primary source, that paper represents, is the narrative version of that original research, that new information. And usually it's authored by the researcher who conducted the study. And it's very clear, and I'll show you how you can tell the difference. So an example of a primary source would say be an article that's been published, or it's a preprint that's not gone through the peer review process yet, or a conference paper. But again, primarily you're going to be noticing, you're going to be researching and grabbing those published articles, just because that's just most likely what's going to happen. So these articles that you're looking for, they're going to be articles that report on original research or study. Hello. And these studies might be a randomized control trial or a cohort or a case control or a case series or a case reports. And as I mentioned earlier, it could be a preprint or a published record, a paper or an abstract from a conference proceeding. Secondary sources are what you're going to be doing. Let me go back. I also wanted to mention that a primary source would also be an actual thesis. A student who is actually, or someone who's actually in a lab and is uncovering their original research, and they're reporting on that new information that they experimented with and found and hypothesized. So a thesis is going to use the scholarly literature as a foundation and support for what it is they've discovered. A lit review, you guys are going to be synthesizing and consolidating and connecting the arguments of others. Does that make sense? Okay. So what you're going to be doing in your lit review, because I believe, unless I'm incorrect, I think Dr. Thompson asked last week if anyone was actually, you're doing your thesis is your lit review, but I think Dr. Thompson asked last week if anyone was doing original research like in a thesis, and I think no one said that. You are. You're doing, I'm sorry, not you, honey. I'm chatting with the young man behind you. Okay, so it's sort of, I just told you sort of the difference between the two, right? So you're working in a lab and you're uncovering your own. Very cool. Do you have your topic? Cool. Why did you say, yeah, like, no, I just was curious. No, I'm not going to put you on the spot like that. Yes, honey. So you're doing a thesis, not a lit review. Okay, well they're different. Okay, but the same search strategy applies. Okay, so you're doing a primary. You're doing primary research. The lit review, it's also called a narrative review, it's a secondary resource. Very valuable. Okay, it's very valuable. So that being said, when you do your lit review, you're not going to be citing review articles because that's what you're doing, unless you're doing a thesis. Because you can use a review article as background or foundational information, especially in the early stages. If you're kind of looking for a topic, you might want to read several review articles to sort of get the lay of the land. Take a look at the reference, the sources that they used. But you're not going to be citing review. You're going to be mostly citing primary sources. Okay? And that applies if you're doing a lit review or an actual thesis. Okay? So I did want to point out, though, not to throw a wrench in this because it's not a wrench, it's a good thing. A systematic review is, theoretically, it's considered a secondary source. It's a high-powered secondary source. It is a study. It's a secondary study of a collection of primary studies that relate to that specific hypothesis. It is rigorous. There's a method section. Systematic reviews might also include a meta-analysis, which is a statistical analysis of the results, it's a pooling of the results. So if there are 10 primary studies, the statistician who's part of the team who's doing a systematic review will actually consolidate all of the results from those 10 studies and give you an aggregate. Give you the best answer from the results of those studies. Yes, honey. We're gonna get to that. Okay. You will not have a method section if you're doing a lit review. Excuse me. Okay. So again, other examples of secondary sources, chapters in books. Okay. Yes, sweetheart. Yes. Are we talking about we're talking about systematic review? Okay. The methods are very specific, very rigorous, and very specific of a systematic review. The best thing to really do, and I'm going to show you one, is to actually, and when we're done, I can actually even show you how to search for one, is to take a look at it. A systematic review there's actually a separate class on a systematic review, just so you know. So we're not going to delve too deeply into it now. But a systematic review is authored by a separate team. It's like usually 3 or 4 people on a team. And they have a very specific research topic. And they look at all of the primary studies that are relevant to that specific topic. They might end up having 100 articles, but they fine tune it to the 10, they select probably 10, 15, 20 primary studies. And the answers, the conclusions of those studies, they could be wide ranging, because you could have one randomized controlled trial that's got 100 people in it. You could have one randomized controlled trial that has 30,000 people in it. So the results are going to be oftentimes varied. So they oftentimes will do a meta-analysis to do a statistical analysis of those studies. It's like when someone runs for office and there's polls throughout the country. You usually do an average of all the polls. Like the national poll is good, but then when you do an average of all the local polls, that's usually much more accurate. Does that make sense? Okay, cool. All right, so again, secondary resource is what a lit review would be, what you're doing. Primary would be a thesis, original research, new discovery, new information. Okay. Tertiary literature, next generation. Okay, just again, you're not going to be citing tertiary literature. You might be looking at, it's going to be an entry in an encyclopedia. Again, it's background information, foundational information. Might be a good place to start, just to sort of fine tune or get the lay of the land. Very similar to secondary resources. Okay, and keep in mind, you want the most current information usually, and sometimes just because of, and tertiary literature is clearly not, there's usually no author assigned to it, right? It's just like 20 people who submitted an entry to a dictionary. Okay. So what are we looking for? How do we determine what a primary resource or source is? You will clearly see the research question. You will clearly see the method section. It is a study. How did they conduct the study? Which is why, honey, in a systematic review, you will see a method section. Even though it's a secondary study of a collection of primary studies. When I show you what one is, you'll get it. You'll see, we did it. God, it's hot in here, huh? We researched all of these databases and we found, I'm going to show you later on, okay? Just so you have a better idea. You're going to see the study characteristics, the problem, the treatment or therapeutic, the intervention, such as a vaccine. It's very specific. You're also going to see what conclusions were drawn, okay? This is just an abstract of a systematic review. If you were to look at the meat of this article, you'll see how much more specific it gets. It's like a 10-page article. So you see the methods. Now, this is a very small study. This is not a systematic review, by the way, sweetie. This is just a randomized article that reports on a randomized control trial. Randomized crossover study. And it's small. You see, 15 patients who were being treated with neuroborreliosis. Say that 3 times fast. So it's a very small study, but it is a study. All right, so this is sort of how you determine, and you have the results, and then you have the discussion, and you have the conclusion. Does that make sense? Cool. So when you start to search, I don't know if you guys know Boolean operators, the magic and or the magic or, how you build your search from that. If you already do, I apologize for doing a quick review. If you don't, do you want me to quickly go over it with you? How to build your search using those? Let's do it. Okay. So as I mentioned, we're going to focus in on PubMed, and then I'll do an overview of Embase or Web of Science, or meet with you guys separately. You can book a consult. So what you want to do with Boolean operators, and is what it implies. When you use the term and between the word and between two separate concepts, you are narrowing your results. Anytime you add the word and, it's saying, I have to have Lyme disease and treatment, or Lyme disease and therapy, delivered in the results in the title or the abstract or the paper that I am searching for. So you typically will and 2 separate concepts together. In order to broaden your search, you use the word or, and you or similar synonyms of the same concept together. So Lyme disease or Lyme borreliosis and drug treatment. I'm going to show you a specific example. Quotation marks, when you use quotation marks around a keyword or a keyword phrase, you are saying specifically, I am searching exactly for that. I'm not searching for quotation or marks. I'm searching for quotation marks. In PubMed, as well as Web of Science and even Embase, if you don't use quotation marks, the word it'll default to, it will say quotation and marks. There'll be an and thrown in there. Let me show you what the heck I just said. Okay. This is an incredibly broad search, broad topic, but it's a good example to show you sort of how to build your search string. Okay. So I have two of the concepts highlighted: pharmacological treatments and Lyme disease. I don't have children, even though that's technically a third concept. I don't have it highlighted because I don't want to, when you're first starting out in PubMed, as well as Embase, not in Web of Science, on the left-hand side, you'll see a filter for age group, age range, which when you're first starting out, you can totally use. It's effective. Is it as effective as using keywords, children or teenager? PubMed might miss a few, but I just wanted to point that out that you can do that. So what you want to do is you want to break this up, and you want to search for the mesh terms or the keywords for to fill in the blanks, to fill in that concept for pharmacological treatments. What is mesh? Stands for medical subject heading. It's in PubMed. Embase, it's called Mtree. It's concept searching. It's essentially saying there's a mesh term for ibuprofen, and if you search just the mesh ibuprofen, you're going to be pulling in articles that are about Advil or Nuprin. How does mesh get established? Either a human being, a cataloger, or an algorithm takes a look at an article before it gets put on the PubMed, and they say this article is about Advil. I'm going to tag it or catalog it and give it that mesh term ibuprofen. But because there's that algorithm intervention or a human intervention, there's like a layover, usually a year layover. So you're not getting the most current, which is sort of why you want to, not sort of why you want to, it's why you want to, or mesh terms with their keywords. Okay? So this is very, don't like look, oh, one. This is more sophisticated searching, and you know what? You're going to be doing this, but you're not going to be starting out this way, and it's actually very easy. You can search one of two ways. You can go into PubMed, and you can search for see if there's a mesh term, a mesh concept that handles Lyme disease. There actually is. And when you go into that mesh, and I'm going to show you how to do that, you'll also see the mesh library, the mesh database. And underneath the mesh term for Lyme disease, there's another one. It's the bug. It's this one right here. Who can pronounce that? Oh, boy. So that's the bacterium. Does that make sense? So you might say, oh, well, I don't want to focus on Lyme disease. I want to focus on the bug. I want to get really into that. In which case you wouldn't even have Lyme disease but you might. I just wanted to show you that when you first start out, you're doing broad, you're going to be ORing these mesh terms and these keywords and these synonyms together. So, and then we have our keywords. So I'm going to get really basic here. Forgive me, because I know you guys are all brilliant. So essentially, this is our Lyme disease family. These are the family members. And all the family members are ORed together. This is the front door. This is the back door. Okay? You're going to and separate households together. This is another family. There should be a parentheses there. Okay? And there was actually a mesh term for antibiotics, and it was antibacterial agents. Again, guys, this is a broad topic. I just wanted to show you how to do the search strategy. And you're going to discover keywords that you want to use. You're going to discover those keywords by reading articles, and there's going to be a keyword, like maybe an acronym that you didn't even know about that you might want to, or if there's an acronym for drug treatment, you might want a drug treatment or the acronym, so it pulls that in. But there's also, you also see those synonyms in the MESH database, and I'll show you those as well. And here's our little third concept, which again, you can do by filtering on the left, or you can create keywords or MESH terms. Are we good so far? Cool. You know, it's so funny, I can't see your faces. All I can see is your, well, I can see your face, your very pretty face, but it's like, I'm like, oh my God, are these, all I see is like eyes like this. Okay. So you can start off easy. You can just do a simple keyword phrase. Again, it depending on where you are with your topic, but you can say Lyme disease drug treatment. This is essentially telling PubMed Lyme and disease and drug and treatment. And you can filter as far back as you want. I believe Dr. Thompson said about 10 years, but it really depends. It's research specific, right? Okay. And from this simple little keyword phrase, you're gonna see your results, and you're gonna be able to make discoveries, other keywords, other MESH terms, other ways to maybe narrow down your search. So you're going to be searching both MESH and ORing them to the keywords. And you're going to discover, as I said earlier, when you go into the MESH database in PubMed, you're going to see that there's a subheading for Lyme disease. You don't have to apply a subheading, but in this case, you might want to. And that subheading is essentially saying, what do I want to do with Lyme disease? I want to focus in on drug therapy. And as I mentioned earlier, in that MESH database, you also discover there's another MESH term for the actual bacterium. And then you'll also see these other keywords, these synonyms. All right? So then you start building. And then every single time you're narrowing down your focus. And there was also happened to be a MESH term for antibacterial agents. And there was a subheading, and that subheading was therapeutic use. Okay? In PubMed, to keep up with what's going on, there is also what PubMed refers to the fancy term for new supplementary concepts. That's essentially a concept that hasn't become a MESH term yet. So it's applying for membership into the MESH universe. So as you can see, you see what this is this is a concept for. It's long haul. And in the MESH database, you'll see under entry terms, you'll see the synonyms that you can apply. So you might be your topic might deal with long haul syndrome and digestion, or long haul syndrome and respiratory problems, or long haul syndrome and bone fatigue. Okay, and you're shaking your head, you're nodding because that looks as if that's something you're doing, right? Okay, cool, we need it. We need your research. In addition, so if you were to use this concept for searching, you could or this concept with some of these synonyms. And this concept is actually mapped to, fancy word, it's connected to the MESH heading for COVID-19 with a subheading of complications. Does that make sense? Cool. There is another one, breakthrough infections, was introduced July 12th, 2021, not too long ago. And it's connected to, it's mapped to the MESH terms COVID-19 vaccines, and entry terms, AKA synonyms. These are some of the synonyms, all right? Quickly go over this. The difference between Embase and PubMed, Embase likes single quotation marks. And you can build this, it automatically creates those single quotation marks in the Embase search builder. And when we're done, I'm going to kind of show you how to do that. But I just wanted to quickly point that out to you. In MBase, there was not, I don't believe there was an M-tree term yet for long haul, but there was for breakthrough infections. And actually, it wasn't an M-tree term yet. They called it a candidate term. So it's running for office to become an M-tree term. Okay. Web of Science, really easy, straight keyword searching. As the name implies, Web of Science is the web of science. It's connecting scholarly research together. So if you were to do a very simple search in Web of Science, for instance, Lyme disease and drug therapy or treatment or drugs, these little asterisks here, that's a wild card. That's saying, I'm cool with any ending you want to give me, pharmacology or pharmaceutical. You can get fancy or you can just write it out. Web of Science does not have filters on the left for age ranges, so you do want to add, I have child asterisk, meaning children or child. You can also limit to specific research areas in Web of Science. And again, getting to that reason why they call it Web of Science, you can sort your results by highest citations first, meaning the citations that have been cited the most are going to be up front. And then, so you can see where that article that hopefully represents that study traveled to. And you can also take a look at that article and take a look at the references and see what helped build that article, what helped build that study. So you've heard about the provenance of art. It's like the provenance of scholarly research, okay? Where it came from, where it traveled to. Are we good so far? Okay. So some of you might have a specific topic, and if you do, I apologize. I just want to quickly mention the whole, if you have a broad subject, because it's so early that most of you probably do have a broad subject. And those of you who are going to be listening to this after the fact, because there's a lot of people who are going to want this recording, if you do have a broad subject, what you want to do is get an initial broad subject search to get the lay of the land. You're going to see the results, and you're going to start zeroing in on what interests you. And you're going to organically, just by reading the titles and the abstracts, you're going to be making discoveries of trends and specifics that's going to help you narrow down and focus. You might pick a couple of particular articles that are beginning to focus in on your area. You're going to open up that article and you're going to see some keywords and phrases and mesh terms that you can add and to narrow your topic down even further if you wish, or to broaden it. And then you're going to research again, search again with that narrower focus. So as you read, you're going to see what interests you, what's important, what themes exist. Are there adverse effects? Does one treatment present a different solution? Does one treatment have lower adverse effects than the other one? Is there a trend, a raging debate? Then you're going to organically just narrow it down, and you're going to focus in on one specific area to develop a more refined topic. Okay. As an example, let's say you had a aromatase inhibitor. One word. You're going to search in PubMed aromatase inhibitor, and that little asterisk once again is plural or, okay? That's all you're doing. And you're going to get a lot of results. And you're going to take a look at those results. And I just went from 1975. You're going to go back probably 10 years. And you're going to read them. And you might even just read the titles. Most likely you'll read both the titles and the abstract. But you might just initially just read the titles. And you see, oh, wow, endocrine aromatase inhibitor is an endocrine therapy. And it looks as if it might be related to bone loss, bone density loss. Okay, what do I want to do with that? So then you want to, maybe you want to and a second concept, bone health, bone density. So what happens when you and aromatase inhibitors and bone health when you search, right? And here is where you might want to look at the mesh term for aromatase inhibitors. What do you want to do with aromatase inhibitors? You want to look at the adverse effects. And when you click on restrict to major topic, that is saying you only want articles that are focusing in on aromatase inhibitors. It's not any kind of like tangential. It's you want to focus in on articles. You don't have to at this point, but I think if you know you're going to be focusing in on aromatase inhibitors and you're getting a lot of results, you want to click on restrict to major topic. Okay. You're going to ask yourself, what's the therapeutic use? What are the adverse effects? Is one aromatase inhibitor better than the other? Right? If there is an adverse effect, how do we counteract these adverse effects? There's also in MESH, there's a pharmacological action. This is the specific aromatase inhibitor and how it affects the body. And you'll see that, right? So you might want to compare one aromatase with the other. Really getting specific now, but just wanted to let you know that you can do that. You can explore. So now we have our aromatase inhibitors and bone density. We don't even have a third concept yet. But when we did this search, we began to think about we began to be able to narrow down our topic. And we began to create a research topic, the effects of physical exercise on reducing bone loss due to aromatase inhibitors. Because by searching this, just with this, without that third concept yet, we see some articles, some studies. This is a clinical trial. Physical activity among patients with breast cancer receiving aromatase inhibitors is associated with bone health, a cross-sectional observational study. So now we might have our third concept. We want to even get, which is physical exercise. If we want to get even more specific, we can, probably don't need to. Then you can say, oh, well, what type of exercise? Resistance training, cardio, stretching, what? So we now have our three concepts. We have our search, aromatase inhibitors. We have our mesh term, our keyword. We have our second concept. We discovered that there was a mesh term for bone density. There's a subheading called for drug effects, right? The adverse effects for bone density. And then we discovered that there's actually a mesh term for exercise therapeutic use. And you're going to probably be ORing more. You might want to OR more keywords, but just this is a start. Does this make sense, guys? Okay. And as a result of that search, we see this article, effects of exercise on physical outcomes of breast cancer survivors receiving hormone therapy. What is it? It's a systematic review and meta-analysis. It's a secondary study of a collection of primary studies that could be very helpful for you in uncovering more sources to examine. Okay? So what I want to do now is let's get into PubMed. So PubMed is a hyperlink. You click on PubMed, takes you right, gets you out of the weeds. You can start off in the MESH database, but before I get there, that article that I just showed you, I want to bring it up. And I'm bringing it up. There's something you could type in the title of the article easily. There's something called a PMID number, PubMed ID number, and it's in the citation itself. It's a really easy way to kind of grab that article. You guys are probably familiar with that. This one was 330366706. Okay. So here's that article, and it's a meta-analysis. And you'll see the methods. They searched the research databases that they searched. Okay, again, this is just the abstract. So it's going to get much more specific. They're going to show you how they searched. how they did the meta-analysis, how they extracted the data. It gets extremely specific. And you'll see this is a secondary resource, but it's a secondary study of a collection of primary studies. And when you go more into the detail of the article, when you go into the meat of the article, you'll see the different individual studies. I think there's like 10 or 12 of these, and you'll see how they compared and extracted the data and pooled those results into one final conclusive answer. Make sense? Okay, cool. So if that is an article that kind of is beginning to kind of help you narrow down or kind of begin to focus in on what you want, oftentimes on the right-hand side of PubMed, you'll see the mesh terms. And you can go right into that here, okay? So if I click on aromatase inhibitors, search in mesh, it's going to take me right to that mesh database. If I click on aromatase inhibitors, I can say, what do I want to do with aromatase? I want to just look into the adverse effects of taking aromatase inhibitors. I want to restrict it to the mesh major topic. I want to add it to my search builder. Here are some synonyms that you can use. You're not going to use the comma. You're not going to say or inhibitors, comma, aromatase. You're probably just going to say or aromatase inhibitor. So you can do that or up here, or you can do it later on. But if I click on search PubMed, and then I click on advanced, I'm going to bring that up. And here is where I can begin. You could do this in a Word document, or you can do it right here. So if I wanted to do aromatase inhibitors, I cannot see. Very dark here. You can search. And again, we don't have, it's 1951. We haven't even added our ands yet, which will narrow it down. But every single time I go back, so that's my first concept, my family concept. Now, if I wanted to do, let's say, this is not going anywhere, guys. If I click on PubMed, right? And I say bone health. I can go right into, I can search bone health, go to advanced. I can say bone health, add query, and then I can bring down that second family. What do we do with the second family? And, okay? Your eyes got big. Does that make sense? Yeah, it is cool. When you go to pubmed.gov, get you out of the weeds. This is not going anywhere. And you can delete. It starts getting messy. Just delete these friggin' things, right? How do you delete them? There's a way to delete them. Oh, I delete all the time. Delete. Okay? You can delete and just kind of clean it up a little bit. Or you can just start out easy. Lyme disease. Drug therapy. That's saying Lyme and disease, and drug and therapy. Okay, I have not narrowed this down. Let's say if we want to narrow it down, you can go 10 years. You can say, I want to make a point here. Again, there's a difference between a systematic review and a review article. You guys are doing a lit review. Some of you, not all of you. My apologies. PubMed sometimes gets a little confused, and they'll say a systematic review, they'll tag that systematic review article. But you'll know when you see it because you're going to see there's a methods section if it's a systematic review. Okay. So now you're just starting out. You don't really know what you want to do, but you see an article that's beginning to kind of sort of begin to focus on your broad topic. Here is where you can grab those mesh terms. Lyme disease, drug therapy, going right into there. Search in the mesh. Here is, now we see there's another one. Oh, you know what? I don't want to do Lyme disease. I want to focus on Lyme neuroborreliosis. So maybe that's what you want to do. But either way, when you click on Lyme disease, you open it up and you can say, okay, where's my drug therapy? Restrict to mesh major topic. Lyme disease automatically explodes to these narrower terms. If you want to focus in on those narrower terms, you can click, those are mesh terms. You can click in there and choose that. Okay. And here are some entry terms, AKA synonyms that you can OR if you wish, which you definitely want to do. So I'm just going to add to search builder. I can even just say, I can just maybe just copy and paste some of these, copy, or I'm going to do my, clean it up a little bit. Oh, I didn't like where they put that or. Here we go. There we go. Okay. I don't really even need to do my parentheses yet. Search PubMed. Go to advanced. Bring that baby up. And that is my first concept. Now, what I want to do, go to PubMed again. If I want to go into the mesh database or do it as I can say, antibiotics. Whoop, that's not going to do anything. Yeah, right. Antibacterial agents. You can see the results of these mesh terms. These various mesh terms I mentioned earlier about pharmacological actions, or we can click on the actual concept itself. What do we want to do with these antibacterial agents? We want to know about the therapeutic use. Restrict to mesh major topic. You can OR it with some of these, or again, you might be reading some articles and you'll discover some acronyms that are related. So add to search builder, search PubMed, go to advanced. We have our Lyme disease, add query. We're going to add our second family. What do we do? Search. Okay. And then we can narrow it down to the last 10 years. If you want, and again, these are, so as an example, randomized controlled trials, clinical trial, those are all primary sources you'll see because it's going to give you the method section. That doesn't mean you shouldn't read review articles as a foundation or background. Okay? Has this been helpful? I see, okay. Do you have any, yes, honey. Oh, cool. I'm glad your thumbs are up. Now get us another vaccine. Okay, so I want to quickly go into Embase, if that's okay. Do you guys want me to do that, or do you want me to do that separately? Like, yes. Parentheses, it's like an arithmetic. It's like a formula. You want to embrace the concepts. So let's go back into the separate concepts. So let's go to advanced. do you see, if I bring this up, the parentheses, yeah, cool. Okay, so the parentheses, front door, back door to that family. So are you asking me what it does, or when do you use them? Oh, so well, if you're adding a separate concept, you must have parentheses. Your first family, if you're connecting a family with another family, you got to connect it by using the word and you're going to embrace that household, that Lyme disease household, and all its siblings and family members and keywords and synonyms and mesh terms that are within that household with ors, but you're going to embrace it, that entire concept, with front door, back door parentheses. Okay? Any other questions about that? So I mentioned, does anyone have a topic that they want me to do a quick search on? How are you on your topics? Okay. PubMed homepage. Here are some trending articles that have been have received the most activity. I was about just to make a Facebook joke, but I won't. Engagement versus, anyway. So it's really, the articles that have received the most activity, and these are going to be updated constantly. So here we have, safety of the COVID-19 mRNA vaccine. And again, at this stage, if you're just looking for a topic, you could read review articles. Okay. Also, here are the journals that have received the most activity. So we have Journal of Immunology. If we click on that, here are some of the articles there that have gotten a lot of readership, I should say. I mentioned earlier, I do want to go to Embase for a second. Once it decides to take me there. Wow, I thought my computer at home was slow. Okay, I can't wait for you. If I go to pubmed.gov, once again, go to mesh. Now, one of the reasons why you sometimes don't want to go to mesh initially too is because you might not find a mesh term for it. So you might want to just do a keyword and see what's out there on that particular topic. But if I say long haul, here we have our supplementary concept. I can restrict to mesh major topic. I can add it to the search builder. I can perhaps or it here. This mouse, guys, is a little funky, so forgive me. Long COVID, long COVID. Or long haul COVID. Okay, you guys get the, okay. Now I'm going to hit search PubMed. 418 results, and you can see they're only in the last year. Why is that? Kind of obvious. If I go to advanced, I'm going to bring it up. Sometimes you get these little, and it's just because they want you to put parentheses around it, but I'm not worried about that right now. I'm going to go to pubmed.gov again. I'm just going to say digestion and see what happens. This is just a keyword. It's not the mesh term. I'm going to go to advanced. I'm going to bring this up, add query. I'm going to bring this up. I'm going to add with and. 6 results. It's actually, considering this has not been around that long, it's pretty good. All right. Does this all make sense? Okay. Is New York Medical College back? Yes, you are. Now, databases, quick links. You can find our databases here or under, let's go to Embase. You can do a basic search right here, or you could go to Mtree and you can grab those Mtree terms. Again, Mtree is to Embase what mesh is to PubMed. Let's just say break I know there is one. Just bear with me. Actually, this is what I'm going to do. So I can't, I know it's there, but I just want to see break. Maybe it was long haul. I don't think so. And this is what you're going to be doing. You're going to be examining and seeing your results. Just see. See, I tend to have fun sometimes, so you have to forgive me. It's like detective work. I know it exists. I know it exists. Hold on. I gotta find this now. Breakthrough infection. This is a candidate term, meaning that it has not been elected president yet to the Mtree status. But so if I add this to the query builder, there are my single quotes, search. There are my 11 results just by doing breakthrough infections. So it's up here. I'm just going to delete this to get this out of there. Delete, delete. So this is your first concept, right? Now, if you wanted, this is where you can edit. And you can say, or whatever a synonym would be for breakthrough infection. Okay. I'm just going to cancel that. Now, let's just go to Mtree again. Let's go to vaccines or mRNA vaccines. Use messenger mRNA. This explodes to these narrower terms. And here are some synonyms you can OR it with. So I'm going to add to query builder, right? It's up here. If I wanted to OR with my synonyms here, I could, and I can grab whichever ones I want. But for now, I'm just going to bring it to search. I've got my 2 concepts, which of course you're going to build on. And you can build on by editing here if you wish, or doing it in the query builder. What do I do with two separate concepts of families, two separate family concepts? Well, actually, you don't really need to do that here because it's doing it itself in the query builder. You'll see when you're in the PubMed, that like advanced, I call it the Blackboard. So PubMed will probably do, if you do it, it's okay though, because they'll just throw an extra one in. So for instance, I'm going to AND these together. I'm not ORing them together. I mean, I could, but if I had let's say I had Pfizer here, I would probably OR messenger mRNA right here, or Pfizer, whatever the vaccine is that you want, because it's the same concept. But for now, I'm ANDing these two different concept families together. And I'm combining them with AND. And actually nothing came up, which is interesting. Nothing came up because it's probably so new. Or you can get more specific. You can use maybe the Johnson & Johnson makeup. But I wanted to, again, you only have 11 here. But I just wanted to show you, when you have more, if you have questions about your search, hey, maybe I'm not doing it right, we can meet separately. But I just wanted to give you the lay of the land as to how to build your search. There is a little, and then of course on the left-hand side, you can refine it to how many years back you want to go. Clearly with COVID, you don't need to go back that far. And you can also, under sources here, a little trick. Medline is synonymous with PubMed. I'm not going to tell you the different. PubMed is a public interface for Medline, okay? This is telling you that in Medline, there was really not many articles on it. But in Embase, in Medline, there were 11 articles. Wait, what is this? Embase and Medline, Medline is 0. Embase is 0. Embase and Medline together were 11. Not quite sure why that is saying that, because they would be one or the other. That's interesting. Embase and Medline. Not quite sure why they're saying. So Embase and Medline together, PubMed together, you're getting 11 results. But I actually don't, that's a little weird, because you see that, guys? Doesn't make any sense. If Embase and Medline together have 11, why would Medline have 0 and Embase have 0? Do you follow what I'm saying? Okay, thank you. You're smart. Yeah, there's not a pure result in either one. Yes, that would make sense. Thank you for that. So if there was, following what this young gentleman said, because that's very unusual. So usually there are quite a few articles that are just in Medline that aren't in Embase. So it's very unusual that that's the case. But clearly, in this case, it fits perfectly. Okay? So you're not going to get any different articles in Embase that you would not get in PubMed. Right? Yes. That means explode. Let's go back. So if I were to go to Mtree, here's my messenger RNA and Mtree term. It defaults to explode. This is exploding to these narrower terms. If you don't want to include those narrower terms, you would deselect that. Or you could go right into the nitty-gritty. If your topic just had to do with virus messenger RNA. And here are some synonyms you can OR. So you could add to the query builder. You can OR. God, this mouse is just awful. I'm just gonna, you can just do this. Copy. Or, whoops, excuse me. Or I'm going to put my single quotation mark here. I'm going to just hit paste. And I'm not going to do all of this, but you would do or virus M. Yep. Or yeah, I've never seen it where there's not carryover between one database and the other. Okay, do you see that, guys? I'm ORing the synonyms. I'm hitting search. Now I have 826 results. And that's just one concept. So you would want to narrow down your search topic and start anding by building. Does that make sense? No? Okay, good. And then, of course, when you get into the results, that's when you can start narrowing it down. You can narrow it down to study type, which you don't actually, I'm sorry. If you want to just maybe look at the clinical trials, which we're actually not going to be running clinical trials on that type. Excuse me. A few publication years, you can narrow it down. If you want to go to conference abstracts, probably not going to be a lot on it, but there it is. Again, you know what conference abstracts are, right? A conference abstract, it's not a full paper yet. It is an abstract of a paper to come. It's a abstract of a study that will be presented, hopefully, in a paper to come. I just want to, you can also get into, let me just see here. You can refine very specifically here, as you can see. I just want to, so here are all the study type filters. And you see, which of course are all what? Primary sources. And you'll see the methods section in these. Okay? And you're not going to be looking at all of these, but when you narrow down, when you add that second or third concept, that 806 results is going to narrow down quite quickly. Any other questions? Is it a little clearer? Okay. Well, honey? Oh, thank you. Let's go to library, research guides. Did you see what I just did? I'm sorry, I wasn't really telling you. Under research guides, GSBMS thesis, I just typed that in. Click on search. This is the LibGuide that I created. You can click on thesis prep class recordings. Scroll down. This is topic development and source selection. That's something I created last year. This is Dr. Thompson's plan of attack, which I recorded last week. This is how to conduct a literature review. That is going to be replaced with this recording. This is last year's, and it's actually how to conduct a literature search. but just so you know. So does that make sense, honey? That's where you're going to find it. It's not going to be up today. It might be up today. It will be up next week, early next week, probably Monday. The other I wanted to mention to you in terms, here is a link to the GSBMS thesis style. I think I mentioned this to most of you, many of you last week. Here, this came directly from your department. I just pulled what they told me, and it's right here for you. This is the paper that was given to me by Dr. Larea. It's a Word document. Okay. And, oops. And here are the individual samples of how you will cite general formatting, in-text citations. Okay. I also wanted to point out, and I mentioned this briefly last week, is we have the library purchased EndNote desktop, which is a citation management software. So unless you already have something that helps you, like Zotera or Mendeley or RefWorks, that helps you bring in your citations so you can cite while you write, create your references in a very organized way. You can, if you don't have one, you can certainly use EndNote desktop. Very easy to use. You click on EndNote desktop. If you have a, this is specific instructions, how to download for Windows and how to download for Mac. If you have any questions, here is Afsar's telephone number. Here is his email. And I can certainly answer some basic questions regarding how you use EndNote. Okay. But here are also really helpful YouTube channel. And here is also how to use the cite while you write function in EndNote. I sometimes, yes, honey. Oh, sure. Let's go to home. Here's how I got to this LibGuide. How I got to the bit. So right on the left, thesis prep recordings. Click on this, scroll down. You're not seeing what you're seeing. Where are you? Are you in the library? Okay. So let's go back. Let's go to the library homepage. Is this where you are? Okay, cool. Research guides. GSBMS thesis. Just type that in. Click on search. Click on GSBMS thesis prep. Are you there? You there? Okay, cool. And that will be replaced with that recording. This recording will be replaced. This recording will be replaced with the one now. Okay? Are you good, hon? Okay, let's go back. So you're on the library homepage, right? Let's click on research guides. Click on type in GSBMS thesis. Click search. So now once we get to that guide, right? You let me know when you're on the guide. Boy, it's slow, huh? Okay. So now on the left-hand side, just click on thesis prep class recordings. Okay. Avoiding plagiarism. We talked about this briefly last week. You guys know what plagiarism is. Turnitin is very helpful. I've never used it. I've actually heard it's pretty helpful. I've heard it's also very sensitive at first. If you have any questions regarding it, this is how you log into Turnitin, by the way, and how you submit your paper. You can call the e-learning department or email them. Bill Gibbons is very, very helpful. Here's a cute little tutorial on plagiarism. Here's also some tips on how to paraphrase. When in doubt, cite, obviously. If you've pulled a direct quotation from an article, you cite it, all right? If you're paraphrasing another idea and you put it in your own words, you cite it with an in-text citation. That's, your guys aren't gonna, it's a no-brainer. When in doubt, cite. You don't have to cite, as I mentioned last week, you know, the world is round, the earth is round. Common knowledge, you don't have to cite. But if you've pulled a fact or an idea from somebody else, you need to cite it. Yes, honey. If you know some information from a class, so what type of, you could be a little more specific? Is it a study? Is it a definition? Was it from a lecture? I would cite it. Why not? Well, you're going to put it, well, you're paraphrasing because you don't have the exact, right? So you're going to put it in an in-text citation. All right, and I can show you some examples of an in-text citation. I'm sorry, honey, I couldn't hear you. What's that? Okay. I would put the author of the lecture and the year. And is there a title for the lecture? That, you know. Yes, honey. Okay, so if you're pulling it from, you're probably pulling it from a textbook, unless you know it by heart. You know what I would do? If it's common knowledge with the science community and you've read it somewhere and no one else cited it, typically the rule is if it's, you might want to see how other people have used it, whether or not they've cited it. I mean, so if you're pulling it from your brain, do you have to cite it? You know, do you know it exactly? Probably not. If you're pulling it from a textbook, clearly you would cite it. So are you pulling it from your brain or are you pulling it from a textbook? You might want to maybe take a look to see how others have done it. Do you know what I mean? Because it's been cited somewhere. Or, I mean, you would know more than I how often, because that's not common knowledge for me. You know, it's not. So I would not know, but for you, you would know. So you would see where it's been cited elsewhere. I didn't really hear exactly what you said in terms of what exactly. Repeat the yeah. then it doesn't sound as if you would need to cite that. If you're pulling it from a source, if you're pulling it from a book, quote, exactly, I would definitely cite it. If you have any questions about that, I would ask a faculty member or see how other people have done it. Just because, why not, right? Yeah, and I think, the rule is if something has been, around for a while and other people have been using it and not citing it in their scholarship, you probably don't need to cite it. If they are citing it, I would cite it. Any other questions? You guys a little clearer? All right, guys, you know where to find us. If you want to, just go back to the home page. If you want to set up a separate consultation, like when you have your topic a little bit more refined and you want to set up a separate consultation with how to build your search, you can, if you click on Ask a Librarian, request a consultation. Okay, fill out, give us your, give us the topic, or you can reach us. I wouldn't chat that question. You can probably send us an email. Chat is usually reserved for questions that require like a 10-second, 15-second, 30-second, 1-minute answer. Okay. I can't think of anything else. Yes. Faculty advisor, absolutely. I don't know. Yeah, he's such a phenomenal man. I mean, so it's a great department. When I said I don't know, I don't really know the protocol because that's a separate department from the library. But clearly your peer has said absolutely. He's so, you could walk in on him from what I remember. He's so great. But again, the thing is, guys, is that this is still, and I'm reluctant to say this, this is still so early. So you're starting early, which is good, but don't let your guard down. We did this early this year, so you could just kind of like go into it. Just go in with it calmly and organized, and you're going to get it done. This way, you start thinking about your topic, ways to refine it. And remember that you're going to be working on this for a while, and you really want something that you're excited about. And there's so many amazing, unfortunately, there are so many needed topics that need research and that are so interesting. You wouldn't use a New York Times article in your paper, but I've been reading in like this long haul is just not good. It really affects people's lives, and there's so many different topics that you can delve into that are going to be so helpful for you and for others. And so honey, what is it you're doing your thesis on? Yes. Bye, honey. Have a good day. You're welcome. Exciting. I think it's exciting. Very cool. Okay, guys. Thank you for coming. And let me stop the recording. And again, this is really in so many ways just the beginning. If you have any, well, you will have questions.